Before I ever cleared a room in real life, I was doing it silently, with a suppressed pistol, a pair of night vision goggles, and a plan. Before I ever joined, or even thought about joining Special Forces, I was learning to think like an operator, crouching behind virtual crates, waiting in the shadows, and calculating my every step. For me, Splinter Cell wasn't just a game. It was one of the many catalysts of games that sparked an interest, and later, that interest turned into an obsession. Before becoming a Green Beret, and hell, before even becoming a soldier, I was just a kid drawn to games that made me feel something more than adrenaline. I didn't have this big family legacy. My grandpa wasn't a World War II veteran, my uncle wasn't in Vietnam, and I didn't have a recruiter barking in my ear at the age of 17.
Let me see your war face. Sir, you got a war face? Ah! That's a war face. Now let me see your war face. Ah!
I was just a kid who, luckily, became obsessed with discipline, control, and quiet strength. And for some reason, video games at that time fed that fire before anything else ever did. This series is a love letter to the games that shaped me, not just into a soldier, but into the kind of soldier that I wanted to become. We start with the game that taught me that violence doesn't always have to be loud, that sometimes strength can live in silence. When I first played Splinter Cell, I remember thinking the game was kind of difficult. I don't think that was inherently because the game itself was necessarily all that difficult, albeit it had its challenges. But at the time, I was playing games like Battlefield 1942 and Medal of Honor Allied Assault. And eventually I remember thinking, this game doesn't want me to win quickly, it wants me to win correctly. Most shooters at the time rewarded speed, running gun tactics, get the high score, rack up as many kills as possible. But this game? It slowed you down, forced you to plan, made you earn every step forward. The first time I realized that light and shadow could decide whether I lived or died in a mission, it was like something clicked. I wasn't just navigating space anymore. I was managing my exposure, my sound, and my movement. The sound meter in this game wasn't just a gimmick. It made me think about my gear, my pace, and the terrain under my feet. You start to move like a professional. You start checking your corners, planning your entries, listening for guard chatter. You start asking questions that you never asked in other games. What's behind this door? Who can hear this shot? And what happens if I leave this body in the open? That level of awareness, it gets under your skin, or at least it got under mine. It trains your brain to be deliberate, to think before you act. And that right there, that's exactly how Green Berets think. And as a teenager, playing late into the night with the volume low and the lights off so I didn't wake up my mother, I didn't realize I was learning the fundamentals of a mindset that would carry me into a very different kind of mission many years later. One of the things I'm doing with this series is when I talk about these games, it's because I just recently played them again. So recently playing Splinter Cell, I was shocked at how well the game held up graphically. The original Splinter Cell didn't just push graphics, it pushed lighting and stealth tech. Ubisoft Montreal actually built brand new engine systems to make shadows matter. And the game wasn't built overnight. It was the result of endless playtesting, tweaking the guard routes, making sure the shadows looked good, and tweaking the player paths until stealth felt like a second skin. Now in the earlier versions of the game, i.e. the first Splinter Cell game, it did kind of feel like if you didn't have the knowledge of what was ahead, you were destined to fail. And this is kind of true to an extent, I'm not gonna lie. But the game was still a blast to play. It felt like a puzzle you were putting together, and every step you took, you found a new piece of the puzzle so that when you inevitably had to start over, you knew how to tackle it. It's not the greatest gameplay in the world, but it still was a heck of a lot of fun, and even today replaying it, I had a blast. The game wasn't just about squad tactics, it was about a solo ghost, a man alone against the shadows, angles, and roving guards. The choices made it feel real, rewarding, punishing, and unforgettable. And the love that Ubisoft Montreal had for the game, it showed. The gear felt believable. The SC-20K wasn't just a gun, it was a tool, and a tool that made the game much easier when you got your hands on it. Your knife wasn't just a weapon, it was an extension of your presence. You didn't sprint to objectives, you earned every inch of progress. It didn't insult your intelligence, it rewarded it. And then we have the quiet professional of gaming, Sam Fisher.
I'm here to see Tom Reed.
Mr. Reed is currently unavailable, but if you'd like to make an appointment, Mr.
Fisher. I used to work here.
Security alert. Main power is offline.
Okay, so maybe that wasn't so quiet, but that was a little later in the series. The game gets a little crazy, but still fun. But bear with me here, boys. Michael Ironside's voice didn't just sound like a character. It sounded like experience. Like a man who'd seen too much, but still decided to come back for more. He wasn't cool in a Hollywood way. He was cool in a controlled, weathered kind of a way. He was never the loudest in the room, but he always had command presence, and he was the one you paid attention to when he finally spoke. Sam Fisher felt real, not because of his gear, but because of his mindset. He was surgical, measured, and unapologetically mission first. And something about that stuck with me. It taught me that just because you're speaking doesn't mean you're saying anything important, which actually helped me a lot in Team Week during SFAS. If I thought I had a good idea for the apparatus, for the plan, I'd let it be known, and if it got shot down, I would move on with life and do what the team wanted to do. But if I didn't actually have anything important to say, I just put weight on my back, tied some knots, and moved out.
Mark a steady rise in Georgia's economy. Once central to the former Soviet Union's development and manufacture of weapons, Georgia has recently resurfaced as a potential player in the world military industry.
I know this is going to be shocking, but when I played Splinter Cell back in the day, I didn't have any real understanding of geopolitics. And the slow-paced nature and the serious tone of this game, honestly, it made the missions feel real, not just fantasy. They were close enough to reality, at least in my mind, to make me start paying attention. Biological weapons, rogue agents, data breaches, the infamous Black Ops, quote-unquote, in foreign embassies. It didn't feel like make-believe, to me again. It felt like a peek behind the curtain. The game never told you everything. You had to figure it out as you went, just like in the real world. And the more I played, the more I started researching and reading. Suddenly I cared about how intelligence worked, about why some missions never make the news. And that's when I knew this was more than just a game to me. It was a direction. It directly influenced my ideology and my wantingness to become an 18 Fox someday. The movie Zero Dark 30 is a perfect example of this. Most of the movie is the intelligence and analytical build-up to the compound hit. The compound hit is about the last 15 to 20 minutes of the movie. And that's exactly how it is in real life. You're not just running around like a cowboy, popping off a shot at every little thing that moves all the time 24/7. There's a lot of lows that come with all the highs. And while most people find the lows to be kind of monotonous and boring, I find the lows to be fascinating. A puzzle that nobody else can solve. Many years later, doing my first urban CQB course, I found myself clearing rooms under night vision, and I felt it again. The same focused stillness. Every step was intentional. Every sound was monitored. Now, we weren't like Sam Fisher. He worked alone. We had a big team, loud guns, and lots of explosions. But we were trained to own the dark, just like Sam. There was no HUD, no meters, just your senses and your training. And of course your team. But the mindset, the mental reps, I had started learning those long before I ever wore the uniform. In those quiet moments between training sessions, I'd think about those early days when I was 13, sitting in front of a TV in my bedroom, sneaking through the Georgian embassy. That's when I realized that, of course, Splinter Cell didn't make me a Green Beret. None of these games made me a Green Beret. But in a very subtle way, whether I knew it or not, they did help me become ready to become the Green Beret I always wanted to be. Splinter Cell didn't just teach me to play differently. It taught me to think differently. It was the first time I understood that discipline could be its own kind of power. That silence wasn't a weakness. It was restraint with purpose. That one good move in the dark could be more effective than 100 loud ones in the daytime. And I carried that with me, through training, through deployments, through the kind of movements where the only thing between success and failure was preparation and poise. I owe this game more than nostalgia. I owe it clarity. It helped me shape how I approach real danger by forcing me to rehearse in fiction what I'd one day need to do for real life. I think the biggest psychological takeaway that I got from this game was that you don't always have to be seen, and you don't always have to be heard, but you always have to be there. That's just not good stealth advice. That's good life advice for people who live and fight in the shadows. So if you play Splinter Cell and it stuck with you, or if it made you sit up straighter, think sharper, or dream differently, you're not alone. Let me know in the comments what your story is with the series. And if you're younger, maybe just now finding the series, pay attention, because this game still has something to teach you. In the next episode, we shift focus from one man operating alone to a team surviving together under fire. We're stepping into the unforgiving urban warfare of Full Spectrum Warrior, and we'll talk about how it shaped the way I learned to trust, lead, and fight alongside my brothers. Until then, move quiet, think loud, and stay dangerous.
That's what they call me. I'm the guy that goes where others can't. I'm the guy that will cross that line. I'm the guy they can disavow and leave for dead. And I'm the guy who solves their problems with swift action.